this second event of the day in the commemoration, the official city's commemoration of the 150th anniversary of the birth of Mahatma Gandhi. In 1935, Howard and Sue Bailey Thurman led a delegation of African-American Christians to India to study India's anti-colonial struggle and the philosophical and spiritual foundations underpinning it. Howard Thurman would go on to become one of this nation's greatest philosophers and theologians. Others would follow, among them Howard University's president Mordecai Johnson, Dean of Howard's Divinity School William Stewart Nelson, Reverend James Lawson, and Martin and Coretta Scott King. King, speaking of the nation he called the land of Gandhi, said, quote, "Nonviolent resistance does call for love, but it is not a sentimental love. It is a very stern love that would organize itself into collective action to right a wrong by taking on itself suffering. While I understand the reasons why oppressed people often turn to violence in their struggle for freedom, it is my firm belief that the crusade for independence and human dignity that is now reaching a climax in Africa will have a more positive effect on the world if it is waged along the lines that were first demonstrated in that continent by Gandhi himself." End quote. And thus fighters for the rights of black folk, from Martin Luther King, Coretta Scott King, William Stewart Nelson, James Lawson, and Diane Nash, through to Louis Abdul-Jamal and Alfred Woodfox, have embraced in one or another way the concept of, quote, a stern love that would organize itself into collective action to right a wrong. Upon a visit to Mubi a few years ago, I asked him how he was able to survive almost 30 years on death row, and he replied, because he knew he was loved, and because he extended love into the world. Albert Woodfox, having endured 44 years in solitary confinement in Angola prison in Louisiana, spoke of how he and his colleagues, using what in effect were Gandhian principles of ahimsa and satyagraha, were able to resist torture, beating, and other forms of injustice. African-American pilgrims to the land of Gandhi and African-American freedom fighters saw in the people of India people who were racially like them, who suffered a colonial and racial oppression not unlike theirs, and who, like they, had African roots to their civilization. They hence saw in India themselves, and Gandhi saw in them himself. Mohandas K. Gandhi was born on the 2nd of October, 1869, and was assassinated on the 30th of January, 1948. He was a lawyer, an anti-colonial nationalist, thinker, and humanist who employed nonviolent resistance to lead the successful campaign for India's independence from British rule, and in turn inspired movements for civil rights, especially in the United States, and freedom across the world. Born and raised in a Hindu family in Gujarat, in Western India, Gandhi was trained in law in London and began a practice in India in 1891. After 2 uncertain years in India, where he was unable to start a successful business, he moved to South Africa in 1893 to represent an Indian merchant in a lawsuit. He went on to stay in South Africa for 21 years. It was in South Africa that Gandhi and his wife and comrade in arms, Kasturba, raised a family and first employed nonviolent resistance in a campaign for civil rights. In 1915, Gandhi returned to India. He set about organizing peasants, farmers, and urban laborers to protest against excessive land tax and discrimination. Assuming leadership of the Indian National Congress in 1921, Gandhi led nationwide campaigns for easing poverty, expanding women's rights, building religious ethnic unity, ending untouchability, and above all, for achieving self-rule. Also in 1921, Gandhi adopted the Indian loincloth, or dhoti, and in the winter, a shawl, both woven with yarn, hand-spun on traditional Indian spinning wheels, as a mark of identification with the rural poor and of independence and India's right to self-reliance. Thereafter, he lived modestly in a self-sufficient residential community, ate simple vegetarian food, and undertook long fasts as a means of self-purification and political protest. Bringing anti-colonial nationalism to common Indians, Gandhi led them in challenging the British-imposed salt tax with a 250-mile salt march in 1930, and later in calling for the British to quit India in 1942. He was in prison for many years, on many occasions in both South Africa and India. Gandhi's vision of an independent India based upon religious pluralism was challenged in the early 1940s by new Muslim nationalism, which was demanding a separate Muslim homeland carved out of India. In August 1947, Britain granted independence, but the British Indian Empire was partitioned into two dominions, a Hindu-majority India and a Muslim-majority Pakistan. As many displaced Hindus, Muslims, and Sikhs made their way to their new lands, religious violence broke out, especially in Punjab and Bengal. Gandhi refused to attend the official celebration of independence in Delhi and visited those areas in India affected by violence. In the months following, he undertook several fasts unto death to stop the religious violence. Ultimately, a Hindu extremist assassinated Gandhi. So it is in Philadelphia, this major city in the United States, that we officially celebrate the 150th anniversary of the great Mahatma. And in so celebrating, none of us are claiming that he was perfect. He was a human being who evolved. Having grown up in British-controlled India and having been educated under that system, he had a colonial mindset in his youth. He saw India and the world through a double consciousness. Hence, he saw himself in the world through the dimness and distortion of the white oppressive world. And thus he looked upon Africans as inferior in his youth. He spoke in racist terms of blacks. However, over the course of more than 21 years in South Africa, he evolved. W.E.B. Du Bois, reviewing Gandhi's autobiography, entitled The Story of My Experiments with Truth. Du Bois says, quote, in 1891, Gandhi faced life at the age of 24 by returning to India. He faced the problems of oppression and of finding an attitude to it while trying to earn a living. He began a practice in his birthplace and then moved to Bombay. In the midst of his growing personal struggles with white supremacy, Du Bois says, Africa called Gandhi. Then, for more than 21 years, he was destined to find in Africa his inner soul and forge his weapons for attacking human oppression. It was no accident, Du Bois tells us, that Africa, not Asia, showed Gandhi his way. That old and tragic continent was, in the closing years of the 19th century, the critical center of the triumphant imperialism of expanding Europe. Here with gold, diamonds, and slaves, Europe was collecting the finance capital and gathering the raw material and buying the tools and machinery to forge her chains across the whole world. When Gandhi arrived in South Africa, the Indian worker was not the main problem that remained the oppression of Africans, but it was a new issue that had to be addressed. This would be Gandhi's first, however not his most significant accomplishment addressing this problem. He found the Indians divided by class, caste, and religion, and he advanced the idea of unity and organization. After many struggles for the rights of Indians and his gradual renunciation of any but a simple life, Gandhi began to discover his way and himself. Indeed, it is in South Africa that Gandhi received the honorific title Mahatma, Great Soul. However, it is in Africa that he in essence becomes a great soul. He declares in his mind and through his action to be against violence, yet he committed to social and global change to eradicate colonialism, racism, and all forms of injustice. In South Africa, Gandhi said, I've gone through deep self-introspection, searched myself through and through, and examined and analyzed every psychological situation. Yet I am far from claiming any finality or infallibility about my conclusions. One claim I do indeed make, and it is this. For me, they appear to be absolutely correct and seem for this time to be final. I worship God as truth only. I have not yet found him, but I am seeking after him. I am prepared to sacrifice the things dearest to me in the pursuit of this quest. He returns to India, and he began the service which in the end was his salvation and his greatest gift to humanity. He studied humanity. He traveled all over India and traveled in the crowded and dirty third-class cars so as to meet and know the masses. Probably no modern leader ever had so complete and intimate contact with and knowledge of the great mass of his followers as did Gandhi. To the end of his days, he was almost continuously moving about India, in every part, every city, until he became a social institution, personally known to 300 million people. There was nothing to equal this in modern history. Once deciding upon his philosophy of life and the course of actualizing it in practice, he would not retreat from his final goal, the independence of India. From 1919 forward, Gandhi is the recognized leader of the Indian independence movement. Through hunger strikes, cooperative movements, movements of refusal to cooperate with the British, fast, jailings, the Great Salt March, up to the Quit India movement, all politically and spiritually contextualized under the concept of Satyagraha, forsworn of truth and love. As British intransigence stiffened, so did Gandhi's determination to free India. Gandhi's search for God ended with the overthrow of British imperialism in India and his failure to unite Hindus and Muslims, and thus the partition of his beloved subcontinent. His voice then and now is the voice of India in its birth pains. He ended his life proclaiming, "Let hundreds like me perish, but let truth prevail. For it is an unbroken torture to me that I am still so far from him, from the truth, who, as I fully know, governs every breath of my life, and whose offspring I am. I know that it is the evil passions within that keep me so far from him, and yet I cannot get away from them." At last, Gandhi belongs to the ages and to humanity. He is at the same time as much a part of the African American people's struggle as he is of the Indian independence movements. Scholars have recently begun to consider this very unique phenomenon, that Satyagraha and Ahimsa are as vibrant a part of the African American people's identity as anywhere in the world. It says to me that as a people, the African American people, who trigger much that is good in America, that the African American people still constitute a force for good in this nation and in the world. Let us recognize and build upon that reality. And finally, long live Mahatma Gandhi. Long live Mahatma Martin Luther King. May our actions today hasten the day when peace and justice will run down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream. Thank you very much. I'd now like to call upon Mayor Kenny for his remarks.
I'm thrilled to be here to honor and celebrate Gandhi's life and welcome everyone who traveled from around the world to be here today. So welcome to Philadelphia. I'm pleased to be here with so many incredible civil rights leaders from around the world. Words cannot express how grateful we are for your sacrifices and contributions to our communities. I especially want to recognize civil rights icon and former advisor to Dr. Martin Luther King and Reverend James Lawson. Studying Gandhi's principles, love, truth, and nonviolence in India, he returned to the United States and advised Dr. King for over a decade. Today we remember the civil rights movement for its nonviolent practices, which helped us get to the place where we are today, which is far from the goal line, but we're moving. We know that there's still much work to do to create a society that is more inclusive and accepting of all people. But I am truly grateful to all of you who carried out Gandhi's practices and shared them with the rest of the world. We created the foundation for equal rights and civil liberties that we are building upon today. Together we can continue to use Gandhi's principles as a guiding force in our lives and instill those values in our future generations. So, happy 150th birthday, Gandhi. I am hopeful that in another 150 years, the world will still celebrate Gandhi and his legacy, which all of you are a part of. And to our guests, I hope you have the opportunity to explore this great city, visit many of our cultural and historical attractions, and make Philadelphia truly unique. And I just think it's important, especially in this environment that we're in today, one of hate and divisiveness, racism, misogyny, Islamophobia, homophobia, coming right out of our main capital in Washington, D.C., that we, as a people, stick together, join our arms, and move forward, even with the madness that's going on here. So peace to you all. Thank you.
I'd now like to call upon Meghna Chandra to sing the Indian national anthem. choirs who will sing, lift every voice and sing.
If everybody could please rise.
Lift every voice and sing.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring, ring with the harmonies of liberty. Every rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun, another day begun. Let us march on to victory.
Sony the wings trumpet to the skies, names from melting the days away. Once more, and I with the city free, and not a weary soul. Come to the things from which our Father sang.
We have come, oh, we have come over, away with the tears and the water. Oh, we have come, treading our path in the blood of the slaughter. All of the glory past, till now we stand at last, where the white gleam of the bright star is past. Now who has brought us thus far on our way? Now who has by night led us into the light? Keep us forever in the bed, we pray. Lest our feet stray from the places, our God, where we met thee. Lest our hearts, drunk with the wine of the world, we forget thee. Shall be my head, may we forever sing. True to our God, true to our native land. Good afternoon, everyone. Again, wonderful performances. Why we celebrate Mahatma Gandhi? The year of 2019 is the 150th birth anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi. We in Philadelphia will celebrate his life and legacy. As we celebrate Gandhi, we celebrate his leadership of the Indian anti-colonial struggle, a struggle against white supremacy and against the oppressive colonial role of the British Empire. For the African American people and all progressive and peace-loving people in the U.S., he sets an example, provides a vision in the fight for our common future. For far too long, the world has been ruled on the basis of European domination and persistent war. We turn to Gandhi as a figure for our times. He teaches us how to stand for peace and justice, love and truth, and how to believe in the oneness of humanity and fight for unity in the midst of evil systems and ideologies that work to divide us. Gandhi brought life and movement to an India that suffocated under colonial rule and was choked by the dust of the ages and by ancient and decaying structures and ideas. He rejected European values and colonialism as the disruption and degradation of humanity and based his life and politics in the renewal of humanity's ancient traditions of peace, love, and unity. In awakening India, he awakened the imaginations of Africa and Afro-America. He allowed humanity to think anew about itself and rediscover itself. He led his people by living among them, experiencing their suffering. He abandoned the British-trained Indian elites and went to the toiling masses, especially the peasants. He donned their traditional dress, abandoning Western clothing. He lived in a village and always traveled third class, which was the place assigned to the peasantry and poor. We appreciate Gandhi for his political genius that saw the masses of people as the makers of history and the agents of change. He went to the vast Indian peasantry, lived among them, lived as they lived, and learned from them. He was the flesh of their flesh and the bone of their bone. He glimpsed their indomitable will and vast potential to bring about revolutionary change. He led them through example and humility. They thus grew to trust him in ways that few leaders in history have been trusted. He crafted methods and tactics of struggle that were completely new and unique to the Pacifics of the Indian peasantry and workers. Yet, these methods were applied internationally, especially in the African American struggle for freedom and the African anti-colonial struggles. Gandhi based his struggles on the concept of ahimsa, nonviolence and satyagraha, insistence on the truth or truth force. These were ancient concepts drawn from Jain and Hindu traditions and can be found in one or the other form in all religious traditions. They uphold the concept that all human life has virtue and that truth and hence freedom can be reached. Gandhi converted these concepts into a concrete social force he put into practice, a strategy for collective liberation through resistance to evil. In the end, Gandhi taught the downtrodden to love themselves and to even see the spark of divinity in their enemies. But in doing so, to stand up and fight for justice, he was a phenomenon that was not predicted and not expected, and yet which changed the course of the history of the world. The freedom of India and the defeat of the British Empire spiraled into a worldwide anti-colonial and anti-race struggle. It inspired the struggle against apartheid in South Africa. It inspired the Black freedom struggle in America as part of the worldwide struggle against racial oppression. In celebrating Gandhi, we also celebrate Martin Luther King Jr., the greatest interpreter of Gandhi. Martin Luther King Jr. showed that nonviolent resistance is an act of extreme courage. He showed that love can be a powerful social force capable of changing society. Martin Luther King Jr. continued what Gandhi had started and took it to greater heights. He took the principles of Ahimsa and Satyagraha and fused them with the African-American Christianity and spirituality in ways that define the moral and tactical approaches in the Black freedom struggle. He created a new language and a new philosophy, which was a beautiful synthesis of India and Afro-America. In fighting for the liberation of Black people in the United States, he fought for the liberation of humanity as such. There is a single garment of destiny that binds King and Gandhi in their fight for peace in a new world. Today, we are in a period of profound and existential crisis of the old world order. We live in a time of pessimism, a time when poverty and a deep tiredness affects our people. Humanity continues to face the profound danger of a world war. International relations continue to be defined by imperialism and neo-colonialism. In this dark hour, we look to this history to illuminate our future. A new world is being born, and we will struggle to define it with a new freedom, a new democracy, and with world peace. It will be a world in which darker women and men would take their rightful place. It would be a new civilization with social and economic arrangement that serves humanity. The lives and ideas of Gandhi and of King teach us that the power of the spirit can challenge military, economic, and political domination. They teach us that love is powerful, that it can challenge unjust and evil systems. They show the creative and redemptive power in love, its strength and its radical potential. People can make history, and love can be an enormous moving force towards justice and truth. And so, following Gandhi, King, and all those who came before us, we call today for peace. We call for a beloved community, for a social ethic defined by a love supreme. We call to an end to the wars that the American government wages, and a peace budget that serves the poor. We call for a constructive program that rebuilds a collapsing society and puts an end to the war at home. We call for an education that raises the consciousness of the masses of people. We call for a new music and new art that is based in love for the people. We call on workers, on unions, churches, theologians, artists, scientists, and all peace-loving people to participate in this year of Gandhi to continue to fight for peace. The deep relationship between India and Afro-America and their common struggle for freedom has much to teach the world. The life of Gandhi, King, the legacy of struggle, the principles of Ahimsa and Satyagraha take on a new significance. The form of international relations must increasingly be defined by these concepts. We must rededicate ourselves to the struggle for peace and fight for the transition to a society where humanity can find its rightful place. The year of Gandhi is a time of renewed struggle and commitment. Let us unite and move forward in the name of humanity, of peace, and freedom. We stand upon the shoulders of Gandhi and Martin Luther King Jr. The year of Gandhi is a time to spread the meaning of his ideas for the 21st century and to awaken a renewed spirit of hope among our people. Long live Gandhi and the struggle for peace and freedom. Thank you.
I'd like to now call on Councilwoman Janie Blackwell, who will introduce a resolution into City Council today calling for the city to celebrate October as the year of Gandhi. Councilwoman Blackwell.
As always, we first thank our Creator for the privilege of seeing another day and the pleasure to be here with all of you. We were so honored to introduce the resolution in City Council, and all who were there, felt the effects of what was happening. And I would like to say, Reverend Lawson, when we introduced you, that just kind of put the icing on the cake. People were so impressed to have not only Tony Montero, but Reverend Lawson and all who were there as people who could relate to what happened to Mahatma Gandhi and King, and you understood that what we are talking about is the power of love. It is wonderful to be here today, to be able to talk about that which is ultimate. That is what is most important, because we don't hear it. There was a time we did hear people talk about it, but we don't hear people talk about the power of love as we once did. And it is wonderful to talk about it on this time of the 150th anniversary of Gandhi's birthday. It is wonderful that we can do it right here, where we will have a record, a permanent record of all of this in City Council, and we have time to say to all of our city's leaders that we recognize what is important, and that we recognize and come together to talk about the legacy of Gandhi and the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King. And so many people are saying wonderful things. I won't give all my remarks. Suffice it to say that I'm here with my wonderful friends. Thank you for being here. I'm here with so many wonderful leaders. I want to thank Tony Montero for bringing this to us and for allowing us to share in what is the ultimate, what is most important, and that is the power of love. God bless you all. Thank you.
There are several world leaders and national leaders that we want to, the City Council has cited, and today we will have those citations read out. We will start with E.S. Reddy, to be read by Johan Chowdhury.
I'm very happy to share with you all a citation titled Honoring and Recognizing E.S. Reddy. The Council of the City of Philadelphia is pleased and proud to recognize E.S. Reddy for his dedication for fighting against racial injustice. Whereas, Enuga Srivastu Reddy was born on July 1st, 1924, in Balaprolu, Andhra Pradesh, India. His parents were involved in the Indian National Congress and were followers of Mahatma Gandhi. As a student activist, he became involved in the movement against British rule. He also began to follow events in apartheid South Africa and the growing cooperation between Africans and Indians in the movement against the racist system. And whereas, in 1946, he came to the United States to attend New York University. During his time there, he was inspired by the anti-colonial solidarity work of African Americans like W.E.B. Du Bois and Paul Robeson in the Council on African Affairs. Through their influence, he became active in the anti-apartheid movement in the U.S. and joined the United Nations, where he would continue to work for 35 years. And whereas, during his time in the international body, he effectively became the UN official in charge of action against apartheid in South Africa and worked tirelessly behind the scenes, ensuring the United Nations help build bridges between liberation movements and their grassroots supporters around the world. And whereas Mr. Reddy convened and participated in a number of international conferences and seminars against apartheid, supported campaigns for action against the apartheid government. Additionally, he collaborated with anti-apartheid activists in Philadelphia, including on a petition for the release of Nelson Mandela. And whereas he is the recipient of the Joliot Curie Medal from the World Peace Council in 1982, the Padma Shri from the government of India in the year 2000, and in 2012 received the Companion of O.R. Tambo Award from the government of South Africa. And whereas, as a city with a long history of commitment to freedom movements on an international scale, honoring E.S. Reddy will continue the legacy of building meaningful connections between the people of Philadelphia, other cities in America, and the world. Therefore, by virtue of this citation, the Council of the City of Philadelphia does hereby recognize E.S. Reddy for his dedication for fighting against racial injustice. We in this council extend sincere respect, admiration, and appreciation of this legislative body. Thank you.
Welcome here D.A. Krasner of the City of Philadelphia, fighter for social justice. Perhaps you'll say a few words in a minute, if you don't mind. I'd like to call upon now Chad Lassiter, Executive Director of the Pennsylvania Commission on Human Relationships, to read the citation to Bernard Lafayette.
Good afternoon. Honored and humbled to be presenting this citation honoring and recognizing Dr. Bernard Lafayette. The Council of the City of Philadelphia is pleased and proud to recognize Dr. Bernard Lafayette for his dedication for fighting against racial injustice. Whereas Dr. Lafayette is a fighter for peace and justice, he was born in Florida before he made his way to the Black Freedom Movement. Witnessing the evils of segregation inflicted on his people and immediate family, he joined the NAACP at 12 years old. He learned the philosophy of the Black Freedom Movement in Nashville, Tennessee, under the tutelage of Dr. James Lawson, attending his strategy, building workshops for the Black Freedom Movement at Highlander High School. And whereas after spending time in Philadelphia, he took part in the student movement in the South, going up against horrific violence against African Americans, working closely with Diane Nash and James Lawson. He organized the freedom rides in Alabama and recruited young students to the Black Freedom Movement. In spite of being attacked by the Ku Klux Klan, he continued to give his life to the struggle against freedom and racism. And whereas Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. recruited Dr. Lafayette to the Southern Christian Leadership Conference in 1967 as his program director, in 1968, Lafayette worked on the Poor People's Campaign with Ralph Abernathy after King's assassination. And whereas Dr. Lafayette dedicated his life to ending segregation, he, like Reverend Martin Luther King Jr., connected the Black Freedom Movement to the independence struggle of India led by Mahatma Gandhi. He led and participated in sit-ins with Diane Nash to protest against the degradation of Black people in the South through racial segregation. Also, as a member of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, he was the head of the Alabama Voter Registration Project. Whereas, as a city with a long history of commitment to freedom movements on an international scale, honoring Dr. Bernard Lafayette will continue the legacy of building meaningful connections between the people of Philadelphia, other cities in America, and the world. And therefore, by virtue of this citation, the City Council of the City of Philadelphia does hereby recognize Dr. Bernard Lafayette for his dedication for fighting against racial injustice. We in this council extend the sincere respect, admiration, and appreciation of this legislative body. Congratulations.
Betty to read the citation for Diane Nash.
Everybody. The Council of the City of Philadelphia is pleased and proud to recognize Diane Nash for her dedication for fighting against racial injustice. Whereas, Diane Nash was a leader and strategist of the civil rights and black freedom movement. Diane Nash first engaged with nonviolent resistance as a student when she came across the nonviolence workshops held by Reverend James Lawson. The method gave her the path she was looking for to fight the indignities of segregation. And whereas Miss Nash emerged as a leader and organizer through the lunch counter sit-ins that helped to desegregate downtown Nashville in 1960. The same year, she helped found the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. When the first freedom rides stopped because of violence from white mobs, she was insistent that they must continue. She showed great courage as a student and led them to completion from Birmingham to Jackson in 1961. She was arrested that year for carrying out workshops in civil disobedience in Nashville for black youth. Later, Nash and her then husband James Bevel were responsible for kickstarting the movement in Birmingham after the bombing of the 16th Street Baptist Church. And whereas Miss Nash worked for the Southern Christian Leadership Conference under Martin Luther King Jr. from 1961 to 1965. She served as an organizer, strategist, field staff person, and race relations staff person and workshop instructor. She played a crucial role in several voter registration and school desegregation campaigns, SCLC, including the Selma Voting Rights Campaign that eventually led to the Voting Rights Act of 1965. She received SCLC's Rosa Parks Award from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in 1965. Diane Nash joined the anti-war movement during the Vietnam War and remains to this day a spokesperson for the struggle for peace and justice. Whereas, as a city with a long history of commitment to freedom movements on an international scale, honoring Diane Nash will continue the legacy of building meaningful connections between the people of Philadelphia, other cities in America, and the world. And therefore, by virtue of this citation, the Council of the City of Philadelphia does hereby recognize Diane Nash for her dedication for fighting against racial injustice. We in this Council extend the sincere respect, admiration, and appreciation of this legislative body. Congratulations.
The District Attorney of the City of Philadelphia, Larry Krasner, for a few words.
I will try to keep this few. I'm a rather unusual district attorney, and then I spent 30 years doing civil rights and criminal defense before I became a prosecutor for the first time in my life by being elected in Philadelphia. One of the things I did as a practicing defense attorney was I represented protesters, including at least one in this room, who were arrested and were charged with crimes in Philadelphia County. I did it a lot, and I did it for a lot of people. And on one strange day, I ended up being backup counsel to Reverend James Luther Bevel, who got arrested in Philadelphia because he was committing the crime of praying on the lawn of a judge who kind of needed some prayer. So I have had an unusual and intertwined relationship with Gandhian tactics, with the teachings and the strategy of freedom riders and efforts to achieve nonviolent social change through direct action. And I'm grateful for that. And now in my new capacity as a prosecutor, I'm in the very anomalous place of being a prosecutor who says we have too many people in jail. And we have a racist system. We have a system that is connected to slavery in many ways, things that you all know, and you know it in your bones, and you know it in your brains because you know it both ways. But I'm in the funny position of doing that, and so I have a debt to James is that I use this phrase, freedom riders, and I use it to recruit lawyers. In fact, I just used it at Southern University yesterday. I was in Baton Rouge where I was recruiting young attorneys, and we used it at Thurgood Marshall School of Law, which is in Texas, the day before. And we use it all the time. And we used it last time we swore in our new attorneys to become prosecutors in Philadelphia. Because freedom riders change things. And the freedom riders come from somewhere else to a place so that they can do the right thing and they can bring about transformative change. But we owe a debt to Reverend Lawson for so many things. But one of the things is he gave me a really good line to use when I recruit, and that is to tell young attorneys that what they will do dealing with one of the biggest civil rights issues of our time, which is the reversal of so much that is wrong with criminal justice, that they too are freedom riders. So thank you, Reverend Lawson. Thank you very much.
I'd now like to call upon Lottie Ibn Ziyad to read the citation in the City of Philadelphia to Romesh Chandra.
I'd like to read this citation to the former longtime Secretary General of the World Peace Council, the Honorable Romesh Chandra, the late Honorable Romesh Chandra. The City Council of Philadelphia is pleased and proud to recognize Romesh Chandra for his dedication for fighting against racial injustice. Whereas Romesh Chandra was born on March 30th, 1919 in Raipur, India, now Faisalabad, Pakistan. He was involved early on in the student movement in Lahore, now in Pakistan, and became a leader of the student union at his university. He was jailed for participating in the Indian freedom struggles. And whereas he was one of the founders of the All India Peace Council, now All India Peace Council and Solidarity Organization, and its General Secretary from 1952 until 1963. He was the Secretary of the World Peace Council from 1966 to 1977, and its President from 1977 to 1990. And whereas Romesh Chandra engaged in a lifelong fight against racism, imperialism, and the fight for peace. He participated and supported in international forums in various national liberation struggles in Africa, as well as the anti-apartheid struggle in South Africa specifically. He addressed the United Nations General Assembly several times as a representative and leader of the World Peace Council. And whereas Romesh was known to be a magnificent orator who held the cause of peace and national sovereignty very close to his heart. Many of his speeches spoke of the inextricable link between racism and war, of the removal of hunger and poverty from around the world. He was an admirer of figures like the great Dr. W.E.B. Du Bois and Attorney Paul Robeson. He was the recipient of the Lenin Peace Prize and the Joliet Curie Gold Peace Medal. And whereas Romesh in 1979 visited our dear city in Philadelphia at the founding conference of the U.S. Peace Council, he therefore has a special relevance for Philadelphia, and his message of world peace is important today more than ever. And whereas, as a city with a long history of commitment to freedom movements on an international scale, honoring Romesh Chandra will continue the legacy of building meaningful connections between the people of Philadelphia and other cities cities in America and throughout the world. Therefore, by virtue of the citation, the City Council of Philadelphia does hereby recognize Romashani for his dedication for fighting against racial injustice and world peace. We in this council extend our sincere respect, admiration, and appreciation for his life and legacy. Thank you.
I'd now like to call on Marguerite Stanford to read the citation to Henry Nicholas.
We had hoped that President Nicholas would be here because this is his special friend, my grandmother. And we hope to get it to you personally. The Council of the City of Philadelphia is pleased and proud to recognize Henry Nicholas for his dedication for fighting against racial injustice. Whereas Henry Nicholas is one of 10 children born in Mississippi. He is a labor leader, organizer, civil rights and human rights activist. He joined the labor movement while organizing the working poor in hospitals in New York City in 1957. He was sent by the Union to Charleston, South Carolina, where he organized the union there. In Philadelphia, he has led numerous organizing and strike efforts that have raised hospital and clerical workers from among the poorest workers to among the better paid in the city. And whereas the greatest influence upon Nicholas's moral views and approach to struggle is Martin Luther King Jr. Through King, he came to know the teachings of Mahatma Gandhi. He joined these teachings to the class struggle and the rights of working people. Nicholas, in the fight for the working poor, has tirelessly fought white supremacy in the job market and the labor movement. And whereas Henry Nicholas is an exemplar of the principles that Gandhi represents, Ahimsa and Sana Kampaya. For this reason, the citizens of Philadelphia should live up to his example. And whereas a city with a long history of commitment to freedom movements on an international scale, honoring Henry Nicholas will continue the legacy of building meaningful connections between the people of Philadelphia, other cities in America, and the world. Therefore, by virtue of this citation, this Council of the City of Philadelphia does hereby recognize Henry Nicholas for his dedication for fighting against racial injustice. We in this Council extend the sincere respect, admiration, and appreciation of this legislative body. Congratulations.
I now call upon Catherine Blunt to read the citation for the late Lucian Blackwell.
Good afternoon. As a constituent of the late Lucian Blackwell and a current constituent of James L. Blackwell, I am indeed honored to present this citation. Honoring and recognizing Lucian Blackwell. The Council of the City of Philadelphia is pleased and proud to recognize Lucian E. Blackwell for his dedication to fighting against racial injustice. Whereas Lucian E. Blackwell, as a labor leader and elected official, was a fighter for the poor and working people. He exemplified the Ghanaian principles of Ahimsa and Satyagraha, truth and force. Whereas after attending West Philadelphia High School, he joined the labor force working as a longshoreman on Philadelphia's waterfront. Beginning as an unskilled laborer, he gradually moved up to foreman and then vice president, business agent, eventually in 1973, president of Local 1332 International Longshoremen's Association of the AFL-CIO. Whereas Lucian Blackwell valued learning and was a precocious reader, he had a fondness for the work of W.E.B. Du Bois.
in America and the world. Therefore, by virtue of this citation, the Council of the City of Philadelphia does hereby recognize Lucian E. Blackwell for his dedication for fighting against racial injustice. We in this council extend the sincere respect, admiration, and appreciation of this legislative body. Congratulations.
I'd like to now call upon Serafina Harris to read the City Council citation to Reverend James Lawson.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. The Council of the City of Philadelphia is pleased and proud to honor and recognize Reverend James Lawson for his dedication to fighting against racial injustice. Whereas, Reverend Lawson was born in Uniontown, Pennsylvania on September 22nd, 1928. In 1947, in his first year of college, he joined the Fellowship of Reconciliation and started reading Gandhi's autobiography. Soon after, he sent back his draft card in defiance of the Selective Service Act, which he saw as an unjust law, much like Jim Crow. He served time in jail during the Korean War as a draft resistor, and whereas Reverend Lawson lived as a Methodist minister in Nagpur, India. While there, he continued his study of Gandhian Satyagraha, or Truth Force, and met India's first Prime Minister, Jawaharlal Nehru, and whereas Reverend Lawson met Martin Luther King in 1957. At this time, Reverend Lawson was studying theology at Oberlin College in Ohio, but Dr. King urged him to come south immediately to help the movement. Reverend Lawson moved to Nashville, where he was embraced by the local branch of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. During the first few months of his time in Nashville, Reverend Lawson traveled across the South counseling activists, including the Little Rock Nine, on nonviolence. In 1959, the Nashville CLC decided to engage in nonviolent direct action to desegregate downtown Nashville, influenced heavily by the women who suffered the indignities of shopping under Jim Crow. Reverend Lawson held workshops that produced many other organizers for SCLC, SNCC, CORE, and the Freedom Summer campaigns. In 1960, Reverend Lawson was expelled from Vanderbilt for his participation in the Nashville Nonviolent Direct Action Campaign. He would go on to help strategize for and participate in the 1961 Freedom Rides, and whereas in 1962, Reverend Lawson became a pastor of the Centenary Methodist Church in Memphis. In 1968, Lawson, acting as a voice of striking back Black sanitation workers, asked Martin Luther King to come to Memphis. There, Dr. King delivered the famous mountaintop speech, the last speech he would ever give before he was assassinated. And whereas, as a city with a long history of commitment to freedom movements on an international scale, honoring Reverend James Lawson will continue the legacy of building meaningful connections between the people of Philadelphia, other cities in America, and the world. Therefore, by virtue of this citation, the Council of the City of Philadelphia does hereby recognize Reverend James Lawson for his dedication for fighting against war and racial injustice. We in this council extend the sincere respect, admiration, and appreciation of this legislative body. Congratulations.
not emails. He spoke with piercing clarity about dismantling oppressive systems and unleashing the gift of life, but said that India and the world has changed much since the 1950s when he was there. He invited us to call again later. I called Reverend Lawson again in July while I was in India. I told him of what I saw. A westernized intelligentsia that was full of criticisms for Gandhi and a violent right wing on the rise. I told him of the people I met, ordinary people who were incredibly loving and generous, and who spoke of the leaders of the freedom struggle with great reverence. I told him that I was searching for Gandhi, and I believed he could show us the way. Reverend Lawson said that he would think about Gandhi. We spoke again in August, and he said that though he would not be taking many appointments, he would like to come to Philadelphia for Gandhi's 150th anniversary. In the conversations that followed, he spoke of military bases in Africa, the pitfalls of conventional leadership and conventional organizing, the philosophy of nonviolence as opposed to pacifism, the need to go beyond European categories of left and right, and the need to use the gift of life to change the world in which we live. With every conversation, I felt intrigued and uplifted. I felt myself transforming. I am thrilled he is here with us to share his wisdom with the city of Philadelphia. We honor Reverend Lawson as an active participant in the history of struggle. In our conversations, Reverend Lawson said that much of what was written in books and articles was incorrect. And I corrected the citation with him, and much of it was wrong and was rewritten. I hope we got the details right. Reverend Lawson can tell us the truth about history as someone who has made history. We honor Reverend Lawson as a source of clarity, a living example of what the Indian freedom movement and the civil rights movement meant for the world. In a time in which the Western political system is in crisis, Reverend Lawson's vision for peace can show us the way forward. We honor Reverend Lawson for showing us what it means to be a lifelong fighter for peace and freedom. Reverend Lawson has continued to take a principled stance against the violence of Western civilization at home and abroad, and to educate the American people about how the struggle for peace around the world is intimately connected to the struggle for economic and human rights in the United States. We honor Reverend Lawson for showing past and present generations a practice of nonviolent struggle to transform ourselves into people capable of building a world founded on truth and life. I'd like to welcome Reverend James Lawson to the podium.
Very pleased that Megna and I connected, and that as a consequence I'm here this afternoon in Philadelphia. She and I talked over the phone several times. Some of the rest of you here were on the phone with her. And that was a good process for me because it helped me to be persuaded to come here, Philadelphia. I did have, of course, a family reason because our oldest grandchild, Raven, is at Temple University in the first semester here. So this gave me a chance to also see her, how she was doing as a college student. First weeks of their life as a college student. So I'm very pleased I able to work all that through, and I'm very pleased to be here this afternoon. I am impressed and delighted that the city of Philadelphia has given leadership to the declaring of this matter that we've heard very good talk about, very beautiful talk today, how critical it is for our own well-being. And I want to try to push that as hard as I can. In coming to City Hall, beautiful, gorgeous building, and it is spectacular. And when I saw it for the first time from an angle that I saw, that I could see it in that fashion. But sisters and brothers, I want to say to you that if we were to take Gandhi, King and the movement that represents him as making, then you need to demystify this room. I don't want to use some old words. I'd like to rather use a different kind of phrase. You have to help this room come into the 21st century. 21st century Philadelphia. And you will notice there's not a single woman. Were you? There must have been women in the history of this state city, Pennsylvania. I noticed one or two or three men of color, and no doubt in the lives of some of their families, they are alive and well. But this room looks too much like a mausoleum. Rather than, and it's beautiful, gorgeous room, and it is enhanced by all these lives. But for inspiration and challenge in the 21st century, you have to have a whole different set of pictures. Denigrate in any fashion those pictures. They are important for the times in which they live. But this is a new time in which we live. Very different from the old time. It's a new time in USA life. Very different from the way this society was organized in 1940, 1950, 1960, 1921. And while images are not all important, symbols and images that help people to think in terms of where they are today are very, very critical. So you have a task if Gandhi is important. You have a task to help this room and other rooms in Philadelphia become powerful in the present moment. Which is not to forget the past. We cannot do that. Because all of us human beings are in fact made up of, whether we like it or not, we are all made up of an eternity in the past. Because we represent the work of the human race across several 100,000 years at least, if not a million years. That DNA and that gene pattern is in all of us. So we live the past, whether we like it or not, which is one of the reasons why the more we know about the past, the more we make differentiation between the things of the past that we do not need and the present that we do need, then the better people we're going to be to prepare for tomorrow. We cannot avoid the past. It is in us, in our bones, in our cells, in our bloodstreams. So the more we know about that, about ourselves, therefore, the better prepared we can be to live today. And the better prepared we are to live today, the better able we are to make a decision, both personal, social, and political, that help to shape the tomorrows of life. So I not pushing against the past. I'm saying we have to recover it in a fashion that is significant for every one of us. Too many of us hold parts of the past in our lives that is in fact destructive of the present. So that's, I want to introduce myself to you in that way. And then I want to start over again and lift up to this piece. I'm going to leave a little bit of time for comment and exchange if we can. Probably two of the most significant people of the human race of the 20th century to the 21st century. I want to briefly speak. Albert Einstein can be called the father of physics. He can also be called, Albert Einstein can also be called, in many ways, the father of modern science and the great contributions that science had to make, has made in the development of the 20th and 21st century. He can be called the father of physics. He did not invent physics. He did not discover physics. But early in the 20th century, Einstein, as a fairly young man, was thought to be idle and not very productive in school. He couldn't stand the gymnasium, couldn't stand high school, had a hard time. But he wandered around for a number of years in his mind and head, then finally introduced to the world the equation concerning gravity and force that broke a lot of the barriers that science was facing and helped to break open science as becoming a revolutionary change in the 20th century. Even our technological revolutions today are a consequence of that awakening of Albert Einstein as a fairly young human being. Few human beings in the last 200 years have made the contribution that Albert Einstein has made. I want to then suggest to you that perhaps the second most important human being in the last 100 years, 200 years, is Mohandas K. Gandhi. Because as Einstein pulled together a whole range of thought and discoveries of the past into his moment of introduction to the world of physics. So Gandhi can be called not the inventor of solar force or non-bodies, but as the father, at least in the 20th century. Now we don't know that name that much, because my nation, the USA, was pitted against the freedoms of peoples of Africa and Asia, and Latin America, and the United States, Australia. Our power structures wanted to see the world as it was then, and wanted to preserve that world for a tiny group of people, for wealth and for domination and for, in fact, the management and control of the earth. Gandhi and also Jawaharlal Nehru of India did not fit that mold. Lived in India at the time of 1955 when John Foster Dulles, a Presbyterian elder that is a member of the church, so one of my brothers, international lawyer, very wealthy family and man, came to India to enlist India the Southeast Treaty Organization that the United States was putting together as a part of its military answer to the Soviet Union. A terrible mistake, wrong in every sense of the word. And when Prime Minister Nehru, in conferences with the Secretary of State, Mr. Dulles, said, no, India has other issues that are far more important. Gandhi and Nehru took another major beating here in the West. So in many ways, we have politics of the last 30, 60 years have covered up the offering of India through Mahatma Gandhi and Jawaharlal Nehru. But Gandhi's work through his years in London, through his years in India, then through his 20-odd years in South Africa, Gandhi collated and pulled together many pieces and frames of thought from the past. Also listening very much to the present, for example, the women's suffrage movement in Great Britain. It's called passive resistance, and they call themselves passive resistance. Gandhi rejected that term as not a good term to describe what he wanted to experience. The point I want to make to you is simply that Gandhi, in introducing the notion of soul force, nonviolence, that contribution is more important, more significant for the future of the human race than all of the Albert Einstein interventions and contributions. It's also more complicated, also more perplexing, and we human beings, being organized as we have been for the last 600 years on Western notions, find it hard to take and believe or to accept. But the truth that Gandhi proposed is very simple. That the forces of life, whatever we want to call them, that produced us and created us, that birthed us human beings, those forces, whatever we want to call them, are the forces that we must learn to use if we want a world where truth and justice prevail. Or said another way, if we want a world where the human race has the opportunity to thrive and to strive, to tap a little of the great potential that life offers us. That makes Gandhi, therefore, perhaps, in some ways, the most perplexing figure of the past for us to understand. Now, the third point I want to make goes something like this. I did not begin my journey against wrong as a Gandhian. I started resisting racism in the United States at age 4, in the streets of Massillon, Ohio. My father had become the pastor of the St. James A.M.E. Zion Church there, and where I felt, though I could not express it at age 4 by any means, for many years after that, where I felt very keenly the pull, the infusion, and the grace of being alive. But I knew that this playmate of mine who lived in the same block where I lived, he was a white boy. I knew that when he called me a series of names, that he was threatening my life and that he was wrong, and that I had to resist. I did not begin nonviolent struggle. I began nonviolent struggle, in fact, through an encounter with my mother at age 8, where I had the same experience in Massillon Park. And again, having pejorative words hurled at me on the street from a youngster around my own age, no doubt, sitting in a car with windows open on a beautiful spring day afternoon. Again, I responded with fists to those epithets. For the first time to my knowledge, when I reached home after this errand, I sat in the kitchen, my mother working at the stove to my left, and after talking with her about the errand and the school day, I then reported this incident on the street, and my mother said to me, "Jimmy, what good did that do?" And with her very calm words, I felt a very still, ominous experience. And out of that experience, I realized indeed that the way of love was the only way. And so from that day to the present, except for the time of boxing in college, I have not had any other human being like this. Though some people have thought I'm battered in struggle for justice, because I tried to tell the truth, given situations. So, my movement into nonviolent struggle, as I look back on it, came through my parents and family and early churches, where I felt a deep love of God, a deep love of humanity. And I knew that that love was not impotent, overwhelmingly powerful, overwhelmingly persuasive, overwhelmingly the kind of power that could change not only me, but change others. So I want to suggest to you this afternoon, as strongly as I can, that in every society, the spirituality, the intellectual, the political theories, the social theories of nonviolence are present. In every major literature of beauty, in every philosophy that has gripped humankind in various ways, you find this little notion that Gandhi put into words when he said to Howard Thurman back in 1936, Howard Thurman and Eddie Carroll and Sue Thurman and Prima Phenoma, Carroll, when he said to those 4 people who had a long afternoon conference, he said that I translated the term from ancient India, ahimsa, into nonviolence. Nonviolence is love in action, love practice. I'd like to say it another way. Nonviolence, soul force, actively engaged in that we recommit ourselves to the past, saving our species and saving our universe, and saving our own country from rapaciousness, fear, violence, and hatred. Using the juices of life, the things that are in us, the things that make us who we are, using that force for the changing of our nations. Martin Luther King Jr. on the other side of the coin is very, very important for a similar reason. Because my brother and friend and colleague, Martin King, is the first noted figure of Western civilization who, becoming, in a sense, the founder of the nonviolent movement of America, that was a dimension of the civil rights movement. I hope you heard that sentence. That Martin Luther King became the symbol along with Rosa Parks of the emergence of the nonviolent movement of America. That was one of the major wings of the civil rights movement. The civil rights movement, as a phrase, in 2019, is partially a term that is racist. I hope you heard that. Because for multitudes of Americans, multitudes of people of this country, civil rights movement means something that is important for black people, not for anyone else. That's the way the term is used in the United States. So that there's a very peculiar kind of situation going on in the city of Philadelphia today, because Comcast has been sued by a young black entertainment lawyer in Los Angeles. And as a consequence, Comcast, you know what Comcast is? Comcast has threatened or planning to take, and I just got these papers on my desk just 4 or 5 days ago. Comcast is now planning to take to the Supreme Court the Civil Rights Bill of 1866. That's what this document is. The document has come to me through a very solid agency in the United States. Comcast is planning to take to the Supreme Court the Civil Rights Bill of 1866. The Civil Rights Bill of 1866 says, or writes, is the first civil rights bill of the nation. In it, the Republican Congress declared that everyone born in the United States is a citizen of the United States, except for Native Americans, except for the Indians. Because this suit by an entertainment lawyer and businessman, black businessman, against Comcast is such a suit. They have filed a suit against that company and that man, this attorney Allen, that will challenge the 1866 Civil Rights Act of the United States. So what I want you to think about for a very brief moment is that civil rights movement is a term of U.S. history that involves now more than 100 years of struggle, legally and politically and otherwise, to extend human rights to every resident of our society. But that struggle has many, many campaigns in it. And I prefer talking about my work as the Rosa Parks Martin Luther King campaign or movement, which was in fact a movement of nonviolent struggle and direct action. In other words, we strategized and organized to go into the enemy camp with a personal discipline that was like the discipline of a great football team or a great platoon of Marines. Because such groups in our history have a discipline where people demonstrate strength, the kind of strength that they are willing to take the hostility and the epithets and the violence of others as they themselves represent a new form of life to emerge out of the old forms. So the thing that you call, and the media calls a civil rights movement, has many, many compartments, many movements, most of them not having been studied or researched. The Rosa Parks King movement was probably the most powerful of them all. We don't even know yet, there are scholars who are working on this, we do not know yet how many cities in the southeast and the south central, but also how many cities around the country where there was major direct action between 1955 and 1975 against the forces of racism and fear. We don't know yet. Chicago had a movement that they called the Civil Rights Movement. Los Angeles had such a movement. New York had such a movement. But in the South, hardly anywhere did we call any of our campaigns a civil rights movement. The Memphis sanitation strike of 1968 was a strike and an economic boycott of business. It involved mass meetings and marches and picketing. It involved civil disobedience. We did not call it a civil rights movement. The campaign in Nashville, Tennessee, we did not call a civil rights movement. We were pushing for freedom and justice. We were pushing for the tearing down of the signs of segregation. I don't know if anyone here lived in a period of time where you had in public life these signs. No Jew, no dirty Irish, no black, no wetback, no colored person, white only. I don't know if people know that these signs dotted the landscape of our land. They were immoral then. Most of them have come down. I hear every once in a while a place where there is such a sign in usually some very rural area or a place like South Dakota. But the movement that Rosa Parks and King represented was a nonviolent movement. And then that nonviolent movement can be studied and imitated. Personally and socially, there is no other way for human life to advance itself except through the way of truth and beauty and love. Then the last thing I want to say is this. That we have to find ways of coming together to make this happen. Because I maintain today that there are four forces in the United States that have screwed poisons that many USA people drink. These four historical forces are sexism, violence, racism, and plantation capitalism. And these four forces are interrelated and interconnected and interwoven in our land. They can be sometimes researched apart from one another, but fundamentally, injustice in the United States today is injustice that is advocated and encouraged out of the poisons of racism, sexism, violence, and plantation capitalism. And you cannot resist any of them if you do not resist all of them in your soul and in your life. statement since that violent power does not heal, does not lift, does not build, that does not cleanse, does not promote humanity, does not allow human beings to become fully human and fully alive. And if they do not resist plantation capitalism, I maintain we do not have capitalism in the United States. We still have plantation capitalism. Plantation capitalism in the United States has long been, from the very beginning of the founding of this land, a form of an economy that reduces some people to commodity and thingification, does not allow people to be human and alive, does not recognize the gift of life. Plantation capitalism in the United States has helped to build little power places all around this nation where largely white Western human beings and male human beings dominate the regions in which they live. With the amount of land they own, with the wealth they possess, with the power, the way in which they use that to be in control and manage. This is one reason why today the United States of America has over 800 military bases in more than 100 countries, because our plantation capitalism is determined that the earth belongs to the USA, no matter where it is. That if you live on earth, then you must do what we of the United States of America say. And I began to see this in World War II, like I never knew it before, of course, when I was a high school student. And I've seen it ever since in so many different ways. So I say to you that as we talk about Gandhi's 150th birthday, and I'm so pleased that you have done this and that the Free School group has engineered it and carried it out. Lots of other groups like the Free School group is doing the same thing in other places. I know in California alone in October I'm going to 3 Gandhi celebrations at Fresno State, Stanford University as well, just in the month of October. I've been invited to 2 or 3 others in California. So I congratulate the Free School people for putting this together in this fashion. And I stated that the force of creation is the force of compassion and life. Gandhi put up a place, put walls in place, he called the science of social change. And I agree with that very much. There is a way to bring about social change. Soul Force is that way. Use the things that make you alive and work well. Human. Use those forces to organize campaigns, to transform yourself, to transform your city, to transform your home, to transform our world. As never before in the United States, we need religious organizations and fraternal organizations and union organizations. We need cultural and artistic organizations that transform their spirituality, allow their spirituality, use politically, so that this nation can one day become a great experiment in nonviolence. We are not the greatest nation in the world, but I do think that we are the finest people in the world. But every other land has the finest people in the world as well. It is through nonviolence, soul force, that I think we can make the greatest progress for ourselves. The way of our own governments in the United States, while they're blessed in one way, the other
conversation room where there'll be some food and some music and dancing and entertainment and some more speeches, you know, shorter ones. And I invite all of you all this evening to join us at the Church of the Advocate in North Philadelphia, where we will host a dinner and a conversation with Reverend Lawson. Get up here at the Church of the Advocate, 18th and Diamond. Everybody is invited. We're going to have good food, and we'll continue this conversation.
Is it free?
It is free. Free open to the public. It's our gift to all of you freedom fighters on this occasion of the 150th anniversary celebration of Gandhi's birth. You know, we're still setting up in the conversation room, but we can, you know, we'll have a few minutes. We don't have to talk anymore. We can relax. And in a few minutes, we'll just go over. No, you'll speak over there. John, unless you want to say some words now. This is John Shannon. He is the chairman of the Mayor's Commission on Asian Affairs. We'll speak over there. You can speak over there.
Good afternoon, everybody. I just have a few very brief remarks. Reverend Lawson, I came in at the end of your remarks, but thank you very much. We are all here fighting for equity and equality. Just with your 4 terms there, you've given me a vocabulary that sums up the challenges we have in this world about equity and the lack of freedom. So thank you very much for that. Again, my name is John Chin, and I'm the chairman of the Mayor's Commission on Asian American Affairs. And I'm speaking on behalf of the commissioners who are here today. I know that I'm standing in the way of the cultural engagement next door, so I'm going to keep my remarks really short. Today is an auspicious day for Philadelphia because the birth of Mahatma Gandhi has brought us together. Gandhi has brought us together from different backgrounds, experiences, and points of view to unite for one cause today. We're here to embrace the teachings of Gandhi. We are here to call for freedom, freedom from political oppression, social oppression, economic oppression, and sadly, sometimes neighborhood oppression. We are not a free society unless we are all free. So, our Mayor's Commission is fighting for equality, equity, and equality. We have asked the Commission of Elections in this coming general election to provide language access on the new voting machine, to ensure that there's no voter that's disenfranchised with the new technology. We have opposed laws and ordinances that negatively impact one specific group. But today, it's really about Gandhi's pursuit of freedom for the world. And just in closing, I just want to acknowledge my fellow commissioners who are here today. My commissioners, would you please stand up, please? The Mayor's Commission. And I especially want to thank Commissioners Jumon George and then Matthew Karakan, who worked with Reuben David, who was here earlier, to partner with the organizations to make this event happen here in the Mayor's Reception Room and next door at Conversation Hall. So I congratulate all the honorees today who have carried Gandhi's vision for freedom across the world. And I want to give special acknowledgement to Councilwoman Janie Blackwell, who's here. Freedom and rights of Philadelphians. And just as important, her husband, Honorable Lucian Blackwell, who fought the before she stepped in city council. So thank you very much, Councilwoman Blackwell. Thank you very much.
Well, this part of our program is concluded. We can just mill around until we open the doors in the conversation room next door, and I think you'll enjoy that as well. Thank you very, very much.